Enough to knock me out, but I'm still holding the throne. You never know till it's over.
Hello everybody, Harvard Talks Prison here. I got a request. I can't remember who did ask this. I'd have to go back, but I apologize for not remembering who this was, but they asked that I do a video on when I got tested going to prison. I think anytime you get into it with somebody in prison, it's a test, because you got to make a decision on what you're going to do. Are you going to handle your business? Or are you going to run? Or So, if you're new here, hit that subscribe. If you like prison content, 29 years of it. Jeez, man, I don't even think of that sometimes. When I was in prison, I was doing 29 years. The years just went by, and I didn't really think about it. But then, towards the end of my sentence, when I had 20-some years in, there'd be somebody coming in, 18, 19 years old, 20 years old, and I'm like, you was born when? Anyway, let's get on with this. I was young, too, when I went to prison. I got to Missouri State Penitentiary when I was about the time I was turning 18. I wasn't quite 18 yet. Like a few days and I'd be 18. So everybody at first, they was just watching me. They wasn't doing anything, and my cellie, he was a good dude. And one morning, he worked at cleaning in the housing unit, So one morning, getting things ready for people to take showers and stuff. So one morning, I was getting ready to go out. And he said, "Man, don't go out." And he goes, "Wait until I get done, so me and some of the fellows go out there with you." Well, I wanted to go out. And not only did I go out, most of the lower yard was where the whites hung out. Even though there were some blacks down there, it was mostly a white hangout. Most of the upper yard, that had 2 yards, was where the blacks hung out. Even though there were some whites. But you usually didn't go up on the upper yard by yourself. And I'm sure blacks didn't go to the lower yard by themselves. Anyway, that's what I did. And these 2 black guys, well, it was actually 3, but there was 2 that was doing the talking. They tried to get me to choose up. And what that means is, they wanted me to be their boy. That wasn't happening. Now, at that time, I chewed tobacco. 2 things you don't do in prison is you don't spit on somebody and you don't call them a punk. Anyway, I told them this wasn't happening. They said, "Well, we'll just whoop your ass." And I said, "Let's talk about that ass whooping." And I spit tobacco on one of the feet of one of them. And they gave me a good whooping, Both of them did, while the other one kind of stood there watching. And then they started to walk away. And I said, "There's still some punks." And they came back and put the boots to me. Put the boots to me real good. It was the only time in my life my hair has been dyed red, if you know what I mean. I got sent to the hole. And this is a message to you guys that are messing up out there and maybe going to prison. It's not just having to, stand up for yourself and everything. You got to deal with what happens afterwards, because you're still going to the hole. It doesn't matter if you're defending yourself or not. And not only that, after they took me to medical and they put me in the hole, my write-up said, I didn't know anything about write-ups or anything at the time, but my write-up at the time said I was a victim of an assault. Years later, I was showing this to somebody, and they said, "Man, they wasn't supposed to put you in the hole for being a victim of assault. And where'd that flag come from? And I said, well, I didn't know how things worked back then. He goes, no, they wasn't supposed to do that. He goes, they probably did it because you didn't tell. I said, I didn't tell. I said, they tried to get me to. And I said, the funny thing about this, and I said, I ain't trying to be funny or anything. This was a black guy I was talking to. And a white dude. There was a white dude there too. I said, I ain't trying to be funny or anything. I said, but when I first got to prison, all the blacks looked the same to me. All the whites looked the same to me. I said, everybody looked the same. And I said, at first I told them I'd been hit with a basketball. And they asked me if the basketball was white or black. And I said, the other white shirt asked me how many times did I get hit with that basketball. And they finally said, well, we know it was we know who it was. We just want you to say. I said, well, if you know who it was, I ain't saying nothing. I knew that, saying something would be even worse, And so they've shown me pictures of these people, and I couldn't tell you if it was them or not, because like I said, everybody looked the same. So they put me in a hole. It seemed like I was down there forever. I don't know how long I was down there. It probably wasn't that long. But I get out, and all of a sudden, all these old head white dudes were, they was congratulating me, patting me on the back, said I did the right thing, and all this and that. And my cellie, he wasn't my cellie this time, but he came up to me and he congratulated me for standing up for myself, not being intimidated by him. I said, well, it wasn't much of a fight. He goes, yeah, but you stood up to him. And he goes, but I told you not to go out there without going out there with somebody. So then these guys started schooling me on how to do time. And this was in 88. So these were guys that had already been there for a long time. And this is where they're the ones who taught me how to do time. Prison time. And some of the things, I see some of the people on YouTube, talking and stuff back and forth, and it makes me wonder if they even did any time, because there's no talking, Anyway, I got into a few more fights while I was there, and there was one case where I don't talk about this much, and I mentioned it briefly on a live, but there was this old head. I got into it with this guy. I got into it with this guy, and
I'm sorry. He's going to marry Jane tomorrow. Please don't ever call here again.
and these guys told me, these old heads that was hanging around with me, schooling me and everything, told me I had to handle it. Well, one of them told me I needed peace. They said, we got your back, and everything. So we approach the guy and we get into it, and like the guy said, there's no talking. So this guy started talking, and I just laid into him, I figured offense is the best defense. And the next thing I know, we went down on the ground. Next thing we know, this other guy, I ain't going to mention any names here, but I really, if this guy is still alive, I would really like to talk to him, man, and do something for him, because he's the reason I'm out. there's other people who's been the reason I'm out too, like Kevin. But this guy knocks me off the guy and tells these other guys to get me out of there. And he ends up taking a case. He ends up doing a number on this guy, hokey pokey. And it was months before I saw him again. But when I saw him, I walked down to his cell. They put him in the same house as me. I walked down to his cell, and I said, "Hey, I want you to know I'm not a punk. You didn't have to do that. You told me I had to. You guys told me I had to fight my own fights, and here you are fighting my fight for me." He gets up, walks over to the bars. The front was all bars. He goes, "I did not do that because I thought you was a punk. I did that because I want you to go home. I'm not going home. I got 300 plus years. I'm not going home. You shouldn't even be here. If you make it out of this place alive, I want you to go home." He goes, "Now, so-and-so, the other guy, the one that said I needed a piece, he should have never put that piece in your hand." And I got words to say to him. He and I have talked about this. And so I said, "Wow." I said, I don't know what to say. And I said, "Thanks, You don't have to thank me." He goes, "There might be a time when I need your back. Need you to have my back." He said, "That's what we do. We try to help one another." But he goes, "You need to get home." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going home. I have a life sentence for one thing, and here I am in the most violent prison in Missouri. I thought it was only a matter of time before I was done. I didn't get sent to Farmington. There was a couple of other fights, and I think I've did videos on them. One of them was my fault totally. I will always remember that they're called Brazilian nuts, not the other word. But I got sent to Farmington, and I got into it a couple times down there. Then I got a number 3, got sent to Potosi. I got into it there. There's one back at the walls where I got stuck and I didn't even know it. Fighting the guy. But from Potosi, I went to Bowling Green. I wasn't in a fight there. And I went to Licking, and I was in a few there, and then I went to Algoa. And but the guy asked about me being tested when I go to prison. Anytime you're in an altercation with somebody, you're getting into it with somebody, it's a test. And that applies out here too. You got to make a decision on what you're going to do, And did I like fighting? No, I did not like fighting. And I'm not that good with my hands. I've said this before. But it's not a matter of if you can fight. This is what these old heads told me. It's not a matter if you can fight. It's a matter if you will fight. And so you guys, I hope to God know about you guys are not going to prison who are viewing this, but if you are on your way to prison, keep that in mind. And just remember, if you don't fight, it's worse. I'm telling you, it's going to be worse. Everybody's going to look at you as weak and prey on you. You can't go to PC. Go to PC, it will follow you. They may, because in Missouri, when you check in, some of the prisons don't have PC. There's some that do, some don't. They will send you to another prison. thinking you're going to be safe there. You're not. That's going to follow you. And you know, it's just like the weird thing. This kind of surprised me when I first got to the wall. Is people knew who I was and what charge I had before I even got there. That just amazed me. And so, and that's still like in some places, you know, they already know. So keep all that in mind. And you know, I was talking about a test. Everything, any type of confrontation is a test. That's out here too. You got to decide what you're going to do. You know, what is going to be the best choice for you to make in any given situation. That's what you got to decide. It's not just running into it willy-nilly. You know, that's you don't do that. You know. So that's all I got for you today, and I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.